Good morning, everyone. Today we're checking out a brand new video from Popcorn Studios of turning characters from the hit game Dispatch into kaijus. You know what that means? It's time for the return of one of our favorite narrators, Heath Hurricane.
A lot of people in my audience
Hurricane Heath.
lately have been requesting that I do something with the story-focused superhero game Dispatch, and once I started looking into it, I pretty quickly understood why there's so much hype around it. The story's great, the voice acting's great, the visual style's cool, and it probably helps its popularity that the game is pretty horny. What, can I not say that? It's not a swear word, and it's true, the game is pretty horny. Come on, do I really have to bleep that? I don't know who I'm arguing with, I'm the one editing this. Anyway, because later this month I'm going to be turning subscriber-submitted cartoon characters into kaiju, and it's been a while since I made a kaiju video, I thought a good way to warm up for that would be to take some Dispatch characters and turn them into kaiju for today. So let's see how this goes, shall we? Let's go.
Hit like if you want, subscribe if you feel like it, but either way, enjoy the show. Alright, who's up first?
Even with me not spending much time.
It's this girl, Blonde Blazer, so that's her name. The only names I do know are Sonar and that Invisigal.
I'm there, my home dimension.
No, I've never played the game. No, I've never watched anyone play it.
And keeps getting better and better at taking care of all the kaiju that have been stomping around destroying stuff there for the last few years. One of the latest and greatest experiments being run to take out destructive kaiju has come out of something called the Kaiju Dispatch Network, or the KDN. Well, maybe greatest is praising it a little bit too highly for now, but it's hard for me to not back it when my buddy Nia is one of the folks running it, and she just brought in a ringer to really help him out. But I should back up a bit. See, the Kaiju Dispatch Network was started on the grounds that more and more helpful kaiju were starting to pop up around the world, and some even with high enough intelligence for humans to partner up with them and direct them to other more dangerous kaiju to fight back against them for humanity. Nia and the other kaiju slayers who started the KDN figured they could have a roster of those kaiju organized around the world. Then they could have dispatchers ready and waiting for new kaiju attacks to be reported. Once they got word of a bad kaiju stomping around, they could check the roster, see which good one was closest to it, then could direct kaiju slayers or operatives nearby to lead or lure the good kaiju right to the location for the fight. It hasn't been a flawless program, but it's done.
Weirdly enough, this kind of dispatch thing isn't actually just common to the game, but I've actually seen it in like a lot of other media.
A lot more good than bad. Their heaviest hitter and their most reliable kaiju has been this one they call Blondie. The big gal is basically a walking, flying PR dream. Not only is she smart enough to process basic human language and follow directives pretty effectively, she also kind of looks like a big cuddly cat thing. They call her Blondie because of this golden energy that floats around her head and the end of her tail that sort of looks like a mane of blonde hair.
Oh, yeah.
She's also got golden wings and armor over her shoulders. In public brawls, she'll usually be seen in a form where she's 222 feet tall, so not massive by kaiju
222? Why specifically that?
standards, but big enough, and she packs more of a punch than most kaiju twice her size. She can also fly and shoot golden energy projection attacks from her claws, tail, and mouth. So she's a pretty powerful all-rounder for up close and ranged combat. She can also go into hiding more easily than other kaiju too, seeing as how her power stems from this red gem in the center of her chest, and when she's not actively in combat or on her way to it, she deactivates the gem and she shrinks down to about 145 feet tall, along with losing her wings and her bubbly blonde hairpiece. She's the poster piece for the KDN and is basically how they got all their funding. Even started selling toys of her since she's got a look that kids go nuts for. Unfortunately, not every kaiju they got on their roster is as reliable. Which brings us back to the ringer I was talking about. A former mech pilot who cruised around in one of the toughest Jaegers to ever stomp kaiju lights out. Robert Robertson knows more about kaiju mannerisms and biology than almost anyone, so my buddy Nia figured he'd be the perfect person to bring in to try and get a pack of KDN Z-lister kaiju on track. 2 months ago, he probably wouldn't have gone for a desk job ordering kaiju around, but he got himself in a bit of a bind, and the KDN had the resources to help get him out of it if he was willing to play ball for a bit.
It's what happens.
So, he took the job, being in charge of dispatching the worst kaiju in KDN's ranks, but ones that he saw pretty quick had a lot of potential that didn't need to go to waste. It's been a while since I did an episode that has design notes. Anyway, I like how this drawing turns out, but it is my least favorite from this episode. And might seem kind of weird to start with my least favorite, but lore-wise it kind of fit to put this character first. I was going to do Coop for my third drawing because from her design I pretty quickly had ideas for how to do a kaiju version of her, but then I realized if I did her, then none of the stuff I was drawing for this episode was the main characters, like Robert Robertson, Blonde Blazer, or Invisigal. And I figured I needed one of those characters in here. Robert didn't fit as a kaiju for the lore I was writing, and the other two didn't give me a ton of ideas for a kaiju I could design based off them, but I figured what the heck, let's take a crack at one of them anyway. Blonde Blazer's outfit had a little bit more to work with and pull inspiration from, so I went with her, and she turned out essentially how I was intending from what I wrote for her in the lore. And I do like how this one turned out pose-wise. I was trying to imitate the first time we see Blonde Blazer floating down towards us in the game, but I just think design-wise the other two I did in this episode I had better ideas for, and they turned out cooler. Still, I like this one, and I hope you do as well. Let's take a look at the finished result.
Alright, here we go. The Blonde Blazer Kaiju, Blondie. Not bad. I actually do like it. Alright, who's up next?
Most of the kaiju that the KDN has on their roster are kaiju that have never been publicly seen destroying cities or killing folks. For a world that's been pretty beaten down by kaiju, it was a hard enough sell as it was getting people on board with the idea of rooting for any kaiju and relying on them to help. So early on, they only went for the most upstanding kaiju around. Once KDN got popular enough, though, they realized they could expand their roster a lot more if they started pulling kaiju that had shown some potential to do good, but had also done some stomping around and smashing up cities in the past.
Yeah,
they called it the Phoenix Initiative, and it was a struggle and work in progress before Robertson joined up. All the kaiju in it will be pretty gung-ho to scrap with other bad kaiju, but they're real reckless about how they go about doing it. See, kaiju like Blondie clearly have enough intelligence to care about helping humans, and can even do their best to avoid damaging public property in the process. When Blondie is dispatched to a fight in a big city or heavily populated area, she'll usually try and grab the enemy and fly him off somewhere else.
Which just
makes sense. A kaiju like Screech Omega, on the other hand, is more likely to destroy
Screech Omega. Now that's an interesting name.
As much stuff as possible in a scrap. And not even
and by interesting, I clearly meant awesome.
Notice what humans get flattened in the process. This big beastie was on the chopping block, about to be cut from KDN's roster when Robertson was brought in. Like Blondie, Screech Omega can change sizes and power levels, and usually goes into a battle as a 300-foot tall bat with a sonic screech attack that can level half a block in a few seconds. On top of the fact that this thing will happily flatten a city while brawling with another kaiju, it also can't be sent out to fight a female kaiju, because it'll just end up attempting to mate with them instead of fighting, and usually it'll end up getting pretty badly clocked in the process.
Wait, what? So if the Sono kaiju is sent out against a female, his instinct is to mate, not fight.
Finally, it can't be sent into areas where there's a bad enough storm brewing, meaning I wouldn't be able to use my powers if I got too close to this thing. And any kaiju with water projection attacks are a no-go for it to fight too. See, if its fur absorbs too much water, that can really hinder its flight. This thing is pretty heavy as it is, and water and fur makes it heavier and harder to fly. So if its fur reaches critical moisture levels, it's gotta land and loses a lot of its advantage. All that together was enough to make it pretty unappealing as a field asset, but Robertson still saw potential in it. On his first day dispatching, reports came in on a kaiju charging into Dubai, and at the speed Screech Omega can fly, it was primed to get there in under 15 minutes. Sending in a beastie that'd do a lot of public damage to Dubai would have been a PR nightmare, so nobody else thought Screech Omega was the right call, despite how quick it could get there. But Robertson made that call anyway. He figured pretty quick that the bad kaiju headed into Dubai was one that was always keen for a scrap with a Jaeger or a big beastie, so once it spotted Screech, it'd come after him. Screech being a monster that's compelled by romance, let's say, was also a big brawler but would prioritize making a move on a lady kaiju over scrapping. So Robertson used KDN's network of slayers to send someone in a jet over the Persian Gulf with a massive speaker system. Once Screech Omega got close enough for the bad kaiju to spot him, the Slayer started blasting the recorded sounds of a mating call from a female kaiju. Screech heard it and immediately started ignoring the target he was sent after. He starts flying out over the water, and the other kaiju follows after him looking for a fight. Once they both got far enough into the water away from the city, the Slayer stopped the audio. Suddenly, all there was left to hold Screech Omega's attention was the beastie that had followed him out into the water. It was a
That's how
dangerous
you do
move
it.
since, again, water was no good for Screech. But Robertson knew the big beastie was smart enough to stay far away from the water and used its range voice attacks. The two scrapped, Screech
Hello.
Omega obliterated his foe with his sound waves, and the day was saved with minimal casualties. It was a pretty clear sign that Robertson was the right man for this job, just as Nia had thought. Nia's now hoping she can convince him to stick around for the long haul, but he's only agreed to work there temporarily, just until KDN fixes up the Jaeger he and his old man were famous for fighting in.
Ooh.
Now,
I
this
wonder
was
what the
actually me
Jaeger is.
taking a second swing at a big bat kaiju doing a sonic screech attack and destroying a couple of buildings. The last time I did that was in my second Pokemon Godzilla Monsters episode, and this wasn't even a case where I was doing it again because I didn't like the first one. I loved how my Noivern kaiju turned out. But
That
what
was
can I
pretty
say?
good.
I kind of just wanted to take a second crack at this. My favorite kaiju drawings I've done have been ones where there's active destruction happening in the piece. And it is kind of time consuming to do that, but I knew I wanted to do it for at
understandable.
least one of the drawings in this episode, and this felt like the one to go with. I've probably said this in destruction
Nope, we all get in the books.
type pieces
Yep.
before, but I probably could have gone bigger and have more stuff get destroyed. Near the end of working on the buildings, I actually combine all the layers for one of them and add an extra big piece of destruction to it, but even that,
Ooh.
it felt like I was going bigger at the time, but now looking at it, it's still kind of subtle. But on the other hand, maybe that would have added too much visual noise and made the piece less good.
You gotta go with the OG Lorax song, Biggering.
And overall, I love how this turned out anyway. The last thing I do after the recording's done in After Effects where I finalize things, I add a little bit of a radial blur to add a little bit more of impact and movement and oomph to the piece. And I think while that is
Nice.
subtle, it's a nice final addition that makes this easily my favorite drawing of the episode. And I hope you all like it as well.
Alright, let's see. Ooh, that is actually pretty good.
Would you look at that? I've actually gone non-canonical for once to do one of these ad breaks for Popcross's illustrated novels and coloring books.
Ha!
Welcome to the club,
Awesome.
big man. With Benny not here, we might actually get through the actual advertisement part of this
Hey,
ad.
Meatbags, what are you clowns up to?
I'm
Oh, damn it, Zephyathan, why are you here?
sorry, who are you again?
No, come on, don't engage with him. He's just always hanging around here because he's canonically dead. Can we just do
Yeah.
the ad proper for once?
Chill out, Captain Cook. Nobody pays attention when the ad actually sounds like an ad anyway.
Captain Cook?
You know, 'cause you're the team chef or whatever.
Oh,
You might
yeah.
actually have a point there, Doc. Nobody likes being advertised to. At least if we're just bantering, they might stick around to look at some of the visuals from the ad we were supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I know, but Pop, are you gonna get them on track or what?
I gave up trying to wrangle you all in the ad segments a while ago. As long as you don't go for more than a minute and a half or so, you can all just do whatever you want.
Okay, well then can I leave?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Right, I'ma do that then. Bookstores is linked in the description. Bye.
See you next time, Captain Cook.
That nickname ain't sticking, hippo face.
Robert Roberts.
Ah, oh, okay, her name is Melvoria? Melvola? I don't know how to pronounce it, but yeah, no, I've actually seen a lot about this demon chick, and I mean a lot. People love her.
Mecca that he fought
Not as much as they love in Visigal for some reason.
and
Don't know
was
why.
pretty world famous. His old man and his grandpa had built it together. They had a team running the thing and doing maintenance on it, but unfortunately, one of the guys on that team, a fella named Elliot Connors, thought he should get to be piloting it, and eventually got jealous enough to sabotage the mech.
Oh,
when Robert's
no.
dad was taking it out on a mission. He fell loose from the cockpit, and then he didn't make it. Security footage proved Elliot tampered with it, so there was no way Robertson or his Gramps were going to let Connors take over. They tried to get him arrested for what he did, but he got off the charges. Probably thanks to
How?
his new boss, this guy Anton Yardovin. We talked about him a long time ago. The guy's a crime lord who builds mechs and weapons to fight back against kaiju, but there's plenty of talk and
Damn it.
theories about the shady stuff he does to get his parts and the dough to make his weapons. He'll also sell to whoever, whether they plan to use the weapons to fight kaiju or use them for some more sinister projects.
Of
Anyway,
course.
Robertson is pretty
Damn it
convinced
all.
Connors snuck into his mech hangar and sabotaged his suit again, because it malfunctioned pretty fierce on his last mission in it, and the thing was basically totaled by a kaiju. Robertson got out alive, but didn't have anywhere near the funding to fix up the mech again. He was gonna hang up the mantle for good, until Nia came to him with an offer to rebuild it on KDN's dime. if he'd work for him for a while.
That's a
Like I
pretty
said,
penny.
he's been up close and scrapping with so many kaiju in his mech that he understands how tons of different ones think and act and move, making him a prime candidate for dispatch work. That brings us back to where we are now, and he's doing a pretty good job getting the baddest of the kaiju on the network's roster fighting the good fight.
Do have to
Another of
agree.
the ones that he's in charge
Damn
of
good
dispatching is called Malkivore. She's a gnarly gal that stands at 316 feet tall and looks like a beast right out of hell. Her looks were a tough
True.
sell to the public to convince him that she could do good for humanity, along with a fair amount of destruction in her past, but as far as the Z-listers go, she's actually one of the more manageable. She's a beast with a temper, alright, but has a higher level of intelligence than the others and can clearly be more conscious about not destroying buildings when she wants to. The beastie's
More intelligent than the others. Was about on the same level as Blondie, or even more than her.
main power is teleporting. Using this giant bony stone slab thing attached to her arm, she can carve open a hole in reality and leap into it, then
Damn,
pop up
that's
somewhere
cool.
else. Don't know if she's hopping into a pocket dimension or another universe or what, but wherever she goes between teleportations, it sure does look a lot like some people's idea of hell. Again, not a fun kaiju for KDN's PR team. Early in his time with the network,
Yeah,
Robert
that's a
sent
shame.
Malkivore after an electric kaiju called Lightstrike headed into LA, where the network's head office runs out of. It was a high-risk operation, and Robert figured, of the kaiju he had access to, Malkivore was the least likely to mess it up. Unfortunately, another of his was within sniffing distance of the fight and came running. It was this real problem child of a kaiju in the Z-listers, Invisigek, this
Oh,
gecko chameleon-looking sort of kaiju that can go invisible, and some old reports showed Lightstrike and her scrapping near LA in the past. Guess Invisigek hadn't
Oh,
forgotten
boy.
her beef with that kaiju and wanted to fight for herself. Robertson sent some slayers in to try and lure Invisigek off course when he realized she was headed in, but she wasn't taking the bait.
Yeah.
And
Keep her out of LA as best as you can. We're trying, boss!
for an 160-foot tall monster, she can conceal herself pretty well by turning invisible and scaling the sides of buildings. The whole thing turned into a messy three-way brawl with Invisigek and Malkivore taking plenty of swipes at each other too. They got
Damn it,
distracted
girls.
enough that they didn't even end up taking Lightstrike down, but they at least did enough to get it to scamper off with its tail between its legs. The PR on the whole thing wasn't nearly as bad as it could have been, but Robertson did beat himself up a bit for that one. Still, he's a resilient fella, and it just made him all the more determined to get Invisigek under control. The next time Lightstrike reared its ugly mug, he even sent her in on purpose, and her next round
Yeah,
with the Sparky
okay.
Freak went a heck of a lot smoother.
Now you're getting
Now, I
it.
really like how this one turns out, but there is something I'm a little bit iffy on, and it's how bright the portal is behind her. Because it's the brightest thing in this piece, it really draws our eye to that, and maybe does so too much, to a point where it's pulling focus away from the intended focal point of this piece, the kaiju's head and upper body and torso kind of area.
Right.
With that said, I do like that the portal being really bright makes it clear why there's a bunch of pink backlighting on the actual kaiju character, because the portal is giving her some extra
Yeah.
lighting. I was pulling inspiration
That'd be
directly
good.
from the actual pose in the reference image that I have on screen, and in that, the portal probably is still the brightest thing there, but it is more desaturated, or it's a little bit less bright than what I've done with the portal in my piece.
Right, I was actually about to say that this portal is more muted than the one you did. And not by much, but still by an actual visible amount.
I played around with that a little bit after the recording was done, tried dimming it down, and it just didn't look quite as good. It felt like if I was dimming that down, I should have dimmed down the backlighting on the kaiju, and I didn't really want to do that. So while I did mess around with it a bit after the recording, ultimately I ended up leaving it pretty similar to how it finishes in what you're seeing me draw here. And overall,
Oh,
I
so
do
that's
still
fine.
love how this whole thing turned out. I think the pose was the right one to go with. It feels right for the character, the framing. I really like everything about this piece. It was just that bit I was like, maybe I'm pulling focus away from the character a little bit too much. Still, I'm very happy with this, and I hope you all like it too.
I think one thing about why that may also be is because of the angle of action. And I know that you like to do it like this, but if you had it, like if she was jumping head on out of the portal, well, it would have been like a perfect way of shining on her, plus shining onto the actual main focus point, because she would be in front of the portal.
Ew.
But that's me. I'm not a professional artist. I'm just a guy who gives his opinions. And I like this.
If you enjoyed this and you want a sequel, let me know in the comments. Hitting the like button helps videos do better. And if you're new here, subscribe to help encourage a sequel to this as well. But if you want more kaiju stuff from me, you could check out my Pokemon Godzilla Monsters episodes, or maybe my Disney Princesses Kaijus episode from earlier this year. But besides that, that's all for today, except of course for ending this video on some kind of positive or inspiring note. And the thought I want to leave people with today, I guess, isn't necessarily positive, inspiring kind of vibe, but more thought-provoking, based on something that I noticed around a month ago. And that is, when you go and look in the mirror, do you feel like you're over there in the reflection, or you're over here where your body is? Because I only noticed recently that for most of my life, I've felt like I was over there in the reflection.
Like
and
you were
only
looking
recently
at yourself.
did that change to make me feel like, no, I'm here, and that's just a reflection. Might seem like a bit of a weird ending note, but I do think it's an interesting thing to test out and see what you feel when you look in the mirror.
That's a very
so I
good
hope
one.
that's inspiring or interesting or something. I love you all, and I'll see you all in the next video on Monday.
And that is where we go on end of today's video. I hope you all enjoyed this. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Link to the original will be in the description below, and I'll see all of you next time when we flick back on. Till then, this is Fox, signing out. Peace.